Yeah, it's all about people and validation, and you can see we are two here now to start up this final addressing and welcome speech. I would like to say good morning, everyone. Dear participants here and online, honored speakers, many to come these 2 days, conference chair, I'm really happy to say welcome, warmly welcome, in the name of NVL and the Nordic Council of Ministers. That is a Nordic cooperation body at the governmental level and has been supporting this Biennale with a very valuable and appreciated support. I'm Antra Carlsen, head coordinator of NVL, the Nordic Network for Adult Learning. And our task is to support the developments of both policy and practice of lifelong learning, adult learning, across the Nordic countries. And I'm really happy for the fruitful cooperation we've had with the hosts here in Iceland and also the international organizations to make this VPL Biennale happen, to be a meeting place for all of us. So thank you for this really fruitful cooperation during a year with online work, but nevertheless, the result is here today in Iceland with so many together. So it's really a pleasure to be here. The Nordic cooperation involves Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Sweden, Norway, and also the Greenland and the Faroe Islands and Åland Islands. So we are 8 together, but this cooperation aims at giving the summary of more than 8 mathematically. We have the pleasure to really share and learn from each other and do it regularly and systematically. The Nordic region has also the strengths that it has a very strong public sector that has a tradition to support learning, to support the groups that are not so privileged, and also to pay attention to those with low formal qualifications. We've also had the privilege of 60 years and more of free labor market movement in the Nordic countries. But nevertheless, there are still things to be done and to be developed further, and especially when the Nordic governments have approved and adopted the agenda for future competencies and have said that everyone should be taken on board and equipped for the rapidly changing societies and the labor market. Adult learning was mentioned here today. Warm words were said about learning, and of course the learning systems are good. They can support and they can compensate for that what has been lacking in the initial education. Adult educators are also good at reaching out to those who need to get back into the system. But then if that works together with validation, with showing what individuals can instead of what they cannot, that can increase the motivation even more, and we could reach higher numbers of participation both in learning and at work. Validation is also a crucial element in the vision that the Nordic governments adopted in 2019. All the prime ministers of the Nordic countries agreed that they want to work for Nordic countries being the most integrated and sustainable region by 2030. And here we have the 3 priority areas that during 4 years the Nordic governments together want to put focus on in order to work for this vision to be reality. And it is a competitive Nordic region, it is a green Nordic region, and it is a socially sustainable Nordic region. And of course, the Nordic countries, like I said, having the strong public sector, we've also had favorable conditions for creating validation systems. The legislation frameworks have been put in place. We've also had the pleasure to gather the key experts in this field and facilitate their work together. The Nordic Network for Validation have had a fairly long journey together, and they have achieved a lot. However, it is evident that the ambition for reaching this vision does not make it easier if the sectors do not work together, do not complement each other. So it's really important that learning is seen, it's recognized, it's validated, that what happens in the education sector, what we learn in daily life, and what skills and competencies we develop during our work. Because if the Nordic countries really want to proceed and to have green economies, we need to recognize and make the new skills visible, as was mentioned also by Sedefo. If the green transition and digital transition should be a reality, we also need to get everyone on board, because the gaps may increase due to the fast transition. So it's also really important. And if the governments want to equip everyone with the skills for changing societies. So the Nordic Network for Validation has specifically, during the last years, pointed out that the major and rapid changes really call for, more than ever, for validation of, in working life, for skills and competencies people are constantly gaining and improving, and also really working to support the stakeholder cooperation so that all the employees can really fully benefit the results of validation of prior learning for their career development and for their personal development. So having said that, the labor market skill is important, but it is equally important to continue to focus on general skills, like team working, like creativity, ability to change. These skills have been important, but they are increasingly important, and we can see they are at high demand in societies and in the labor market. In the Nordic Network for Validation, there's been a strong commitment on the quality work. Good quality of validation being essential and important, both from the individual perspective, but also from the societal perspective. And it has been even intensified during the pandemic and the growing uncertainty in the society, and also the growing gaps between different groups of society. So high quality validation has been really on the agenda in the Nordic Network for Validation, as also the inclusion aspect has been on the agenda. And what was mentioned earlier today, and I would like to also support that and mention that, the networking aspect, the networking across nations and borders, even more important now in this situation we are in now. It is important to keep this we and us spirit and to keep working together. Also thinking about different systems. If they develop independently and in different paths, it is important that they could meet when possible. Iceland and the hosts here have really done a lot to create this meeting place and networking place for us. They also expect that we will take stock from what has happened since Berlin Declaration, what is the status now, and that will be discussed in several workshops during this conference. Icelandic hosts have worked in close cooperation with the Nordic colleagues from the Nordic Network for Validation, and you will all have a pleasure to meet them during the workshops. You can look forward to that, I can tell you. And I hope that you will stay in your best tuned learning mode and good spirits and use the huge potential experience, knowledge that is here, and network with your colleagues and learn from each other. So 2 intensive days ahead of us. I'm really looking forward to. Thank you.